This video will show you how to assemble the RadCity 5 Plus and RadCity 5 Plus Step-Thru. We will be using a RadCity 5 Plus Step-Thru, but the assembly process will be the same for the RadCity 5 Plus. Start by photographing all four sides of the box and the label with the serial numbers. Make sure the label is easy to read and keep the photos for your records. Open the bike box and have a friend help you carefully lift the bike out of the box. Rest it on the rear wheel and front fork protector plate and ensure the bike is stable. Remove the small box from the bike box. This contains the owner's manual, charger, headlight and mounting hardware, fender mounting hardware, pedals, stem bolt hole cover, and the assembly toolkit. The assembly toolkit contains a variety of tools to help with assembly. You will use many, but not all, of these tools to assemble the bike. We also recommend using a pair of flat side cutters, a 15mm pedal wrench, a bike pump with a Schrader valve and pressure gauge, a torque wrench with a set of Allen bits, and some bicycle grease. As you unpack and assemble the bike, make sure to read the information on the tags attached to your bike. These tags contain important information to help keep you safe while using the bike. During assembly, be careful not to touch the brake rotor on the front and rear wheels, as that can deposit oils on the rotor. Start by snipping the zip ties to remove the front wheel. Remove the packaging and set the wheel aside. Remove the rest of the packaging from everything except the handlebar and the display connector for now, and set the front fender aside. Be careful not to let the bike fall over. Remove the set of keys located underneath your bike seat and set them aside somewhere safe. On the steerer tube, use a 5mm Allen wrench to remove the temporary top cap bolt and cardboard spacer. Recycle the packaging materials and bike box according to local rules, or keep it in case you want to ship your bike in the future. Start by installing the handlebar. Look at the top of the handlebar stem and see if you can reach the internal top cap bolt with the long 5mm Allen wrench from your toolkit. If the bolt isn't visible, loosen the bolt on the bottom of the stem. Rotate the stem until the top cap bolt can be reached with the long 5mm Allen wrench. Then, tighten the bolt on the underside of the stem. Remove the packaging from the handlebar, and, if your bike came with one, leave the display connector tag on for now. Orient the handlebar so the brake levers face forward and the shifter is on the rider's right side. Trace the brake hose from the left brake lever to the brake caliper and make sure the bundle of cables is not twisted. Slide the stem into position fully, as shown, and center the stem. If it won't slide down fully, loosen the stem clamp bolts about 2 turns and try again. Use the long 5mm Allen wrench to turn the top cap bolt clockwise until it becomes a bit hard to turn the wrench. Then, turn the wrench another 1/4 turn more. We will adjust the stem and handlebars at a later step. Next, install the front wheel. Start by removing the hydraulic brake pad spacer from between the brake pads on the front caliper. Make sure you don't squeeze the brake levers. Next, locate the quick release skewer. Open the lever and remove the thumb nut and cone spring on the opposite side. Pull out the skewer, keeping the washer and the other cone spring in place. Pass the skewer through the brake rotor side of the wheel and slide the cone spring, starting with the narrow side, onto the skewer. Both cone springs should point in toward the wheel hub. Keep the lever open and thread on the thumb nut a couple of turns, leaving enough room for the fork dropouts. Carefully lift the front of the bike and lower the fork onto the wheel so the brake rotor enters the brake caliper and the axle rests in the fork dropouts fully. Check that the wheel is fully seated in the dropouts, that the wheel axle is level, and parallel to the ground, and that the wheel is centered. Then, hold the quick release lever in line with the axle and tighten the thumb nut until the lever can stay parallel to the floor without being held. Use the palm of your hand to close the lever fully without touching the brake rotor. There should be enough resistance that the lever leaves an imprint on your hand. The quick release lever secures the front wheel to the bike, so it's important that the thumb nut is tight enough so the closed lever has adequate clamping force and keeps the axle and wheel firmly in place. If the lever is easy to close, open the lever and tighten the thumb nut a bit more. Then close the lever. Prop the bike on the kickstand. Visually inspect the bash guard to check that it is parallel with the rear wheel as shown. If it needs to be adjusted, check that the axle nuts are torqued to 40 Newton meters, then gently grasp the bottom of the bash guard and pull it away from the bike until it is correctly positioned. The bash guard is designed to be slightly flexible in order to absorb impacts and protect the derailleur. Rotate the right crank toward the back of the bike to check the chain alignment. Make sure the chain runs through the drivetrain smoothly. If the chain skips or jumps, the drivetrain may need to be aligned before your first ride. Get help from a local bike shop or contact us for help. Next, install the headlight and front fender. Pass the fender back from the front of the wheel under the fork arch. Pass the bolt through a washer, through the headlight bracket, and through the fender mounting point. Thread the bolt through the fork. Pass another washer onto the bolt and thread on the lock nut by hand. Use a 5mm Allen wrench and a 10mm wrench to tighten the bolt part way. To plug in the headlight connector, locate the connector ends, align the internal notch and pins and external arrows, and press directly together without twisting. Locate the fender brackets and mounting bolts. If needed, thread in the bolt to attach the fender mounting bracket to the fork, as shown. Use a 4mm Allen wrench to tighten securely. Repeat on the other side of the bike. Pass a split washer and then a flat washer onto the bolt end. Place the fender arm over the mounting hole on the outside of the bracket and thread the bolt through the fender mounting arm. On the other side, thread on a washer and lock nut. Use a 4mm Allen wrench and an 8mm wrench to tighten securely. Check that the fender and headlight are centered and clear of moving parts. Then, torque all bolts to 6 Newton meters. Tilt the headlight slightly downward so it won't blind oncoming traffic when turned on. If the headlight is tight, use an 8mm wrench and 3mm Allen wrench to loosen the angle adjustment bolt. Then, angle the headlight downward and tighten the bolt securely. Do not over-tighten. Let's install the pedals. Locate the pedals and identify which is the right and left pedal by the sticker on the pedal. Apply grease to the threaded portion of each pedal axle. The right pedal threads onto the rider's right side. Carefully thread in the pedal by hand, turning clockwise toward the front of the bike. The left pedal threads onto the rider's left side. Carefully thread in the pedal by hand, turning counterclockwise, also toward the front of the bike. Once each pedal is fully threaded into the proper crank, use a 15mm pedal wrench to torque each pedal to 35 Newton meters. Tightening more or less than 35 Newton meters or cross-threading the pedals can cause permanent damage to parts or cause the pedal to fall off, which may require a full crank and pedal replacement. Next, we'll inflate the tires. Check the tire bead on each tire to make sure it is evenly seated around the rim. Then, inflate the tires to the tire pressure listed on the tire sidewall. Next, we'll adjust the seat for comfort and safety. Open the quick release lever and remove the seat post. Center the seat post clamp over the notch on the seat tube. This clamp keeps your seat post secure when closed. To start, keep the lever open and twist the thumb nut toward the back of the bike. This will increase the amount of pressure it takes to close the lever, which will help keep your seat post in place. On the seat post, find the minimum insertion marking. This marking should never be visible once the seat is adjusted to your desired height. Insert the seat post into the seat tube and adjust it up or down to a comfortable height. Make sure the minimum insertion marking isn't visible. Close the lever to secure the seat post in place. Tighten the thumb nut until the lever is too difficult to close. Then, with the lever open, twist the thumb nut 1/4 turn toward the back of the bike and attempt to close the lever. Repeat this until you're able to close the lever all the way. Check that the seat post doesn't move. If you need to adjust the seat forward, backward, or change the seat's angle, use a 6mm Allen wrench to loosen the seat adjustment bolt. Adjust the seat, making sure to stay within the limit markings on the seat rails. Then, torque the bolt to 15 Newton-meters. Press on the back or side of the stem and try to move it back and forth. There should be no movement inside the stem. Orient the handlebar so that it is perpendicular to the down tube. Then, tighten the stem clamp bolts 1/4 turn at a time, alternating between bolts until torqued to 10 Newton-meters. Next, we'll adjust the angle of the stem and handlebar. Use a 5mm Allen wrench to loosen the bolt on the underside of the stem 2 full turns. Adjust the angle of the stem, then tighten the bottom bolt. Torque the bottom bolt to 15 Newton-meters. Position the handlebar on the stem. It should be centered and its angle should place the handlebar grips roughly parallel with the ground. Tighten each of the stem faceplate bolts a 1/4 turn, moving in an X pattern among the bolts, and repeat until the handlebar is secure and the gap between the faceplate and stem is even. Torque each of the faceplate bolts to 6 Newton-meters. Once the handlebar and the stem are adjusted, check whether the headset is too loose. To test if the headset is too loose, place one hand over the spot where the handlebar stem meets the bike's head tube. Squeeze and hold the left brake lever and gently rock the bike front to back. If you feel a knocking sensation, the headset is likely too loose. To check if the headset is too tight, hold on to the top tube or down tube and lift the front wheel off the ground and turn the handlebar side to side. If you feel resistance, the headset is likely too tight. To add or reduce tension, remove the stem bolt hole cover and check if you can access the top cap bolt. If needed, use a 5mm Allen wrench to loosen the bolt on the underside of the stem and adjust the angle of the stem so you can access the top cap bolt. Evenly loosen the stem clamp bolts. Insert the extra long 5mm Allen wrench into the top cap bolt head. Turn the top cap bolt 1/4 turn using the extra long 5mm Allen wrench. Test again if the headset is too loose or tight, and repeat the steps if needed. Once the stem is tight enough, tighten the stem clamp bolts evenly, turning each bolt 1/4 turn, alternating bolts until both are secure. Torque the bolts to 10 Newton-meters. If you adjusted the angle of the handlebar stem to access the top cap bolt, remember to readjust the angle of the handlebar stem. Then, tighten the bottom bolt. Torque the bottom bolt to 15 Newton-meters. Install the stem bolt hole cover. Next, perform a handlebar twist test to check if the handlebar stem moves out of alignment with the front wheel when you push and pull on the handlebar. Stand at the front of the bike and brace the front wheel between your feet and lower legs. Hold both handlebar grips and push forward with one hand while pulling back with the other hand. Push and pull with about 20 pounds of force with each hand. Check that the handlebar doesn't move out of alignment with the wheel. Then, switch hands so the opposite hands are pushing and pulling with about 20 pounds of force. Make sure the handlebar and front wheel are still properly aligned. If the stem twists out of alignment, use a 5mm Allen wrench to loosen the stem clamp bolts evenly, a half turn at a time, alternating between bolts. Align the stem so the handlebar is perpendicular to the front wheel, as shown. Tighten the stem clamp bolts by hand. Then, use a torque wrench to tighten the bolts evenly, 1/4 turn at a time, and alternating between bolts until both bolts are torqued evenly to 10 Nm. Repeat once more to verify the torque of each bolt. Perform a twist test again. If the handlebar and stem can still rotate out of alignment with the front wheel, contact us for more help. If there was no movement in the stem, the bolts have been properly torqued. With the stem secure, it's time to adjust the angle of the display and remote to reduce glare. To do this, loosen the bolts on the display just until it can rotate. Then, adjust the angle slightly away from the rider and tighten the bolts to 3 Nm. Repeat this to adjust the remote. Then, adjust the angle of the brake levers. Use a 5mm Allen wrench to loosen the brake lever clamp bolt. Adjust the angle of the brake lever so it's comfortable for the rider. Tighten the bolt to 6 Nm. You can also adjust how close the brake levers are to the handlebar grips. To do this, use a 2mm Allen wrench or turn the knob by hand. Turn the knob toward the rider to move the lever closer, or rotate it away to move the lever further away. When the brake lever is fully squeezed, it should be at least 25 mm from the handlebar, or about 1 to 2 fingers width. Your bike came configured to prevent accidental power activation during shipping, so you'll need to make sure the display connector is connected and/or take the battery out of ship mode. If your display connector came disconnected, remove the tag on the display connector and locate the other matching green connector end. Line up the internal notch and pins and external arrows and press together without twisting. Check that all other connectors on the bike are connected. If you did not need to connect your display connector, your battery should be in ship mode, a feature available on some batteries. Press and hold the button on your battery for at least 3 seconds to take it out of ship mode. Note that you can put your battery back into ship mode by pressing the battery button for 3 seconds again. If your bike unexpectedly won't turn on, check to see if your battery is in ship mode. Next, find the bell on the left side of the handlebar. Test it and use it to notify others when you approach and pass them while riding. Before riding, check that all hardware on the bike is torqued to the values listed in the owner's manual. Squeeze the brake levers to ensure there is pressure in the hydraulic lines. Work through the safety checklist in the owner's manual and test the bike fully before riding. Refer to the owner's manual for important details related to safety, maintenance, and bike adjustments. Read it fully and keep it for future reference. You can always download the most recent version from radpowerbikes.com/manual. To make sure your bike is ready for any adventure, plan to get a tune-up from a local, certified, and reputable bike mechanic after the first 50 to 100 miles of riding. After that, keep up with regular maintenance, which will likely be less frequent depending on how and where you ride. Reach out to our product support team if you have any questions, and ride rad!